How's it going, everyone? Doing another book review today. This time we are covering Prometheus Rising by Robert Anton Wilson. This is a big one. It's not very big in its size, but it is relatively massive in its concepts. I will typically put 3 or 4 bookmarks in a book with these little yellow post-it tabs here. This one's got like 8 or 10. There's a lot to cover here. So the first impression that I got from this book was that it was relatively intellectual for a lot of the books that I would consider to be occult. It covers the occult, but it doesn't do it in an occult way. It's almost the opposite of what most people would consider to be occultism, which is to hide things. This sort of exposes a lot of things, and not in a radical, I'm going to reveal the secrets of the Illuminati sort of way. This is sort of why people do things the way that they do and believe the things that they believe from a psychological level. So the first tab that I have is about the 8-circuit model of consciousness that was, I believe, first proposed by Timothy Leary, who, if you don't know who Timothy Leary was, he was I believe he was a psychologist. I know him more from his LSD escapades and his effect on the Cultural Revolution via hallucinogens and entheogens. But I guess we'll go through a little bit of this, just so you know what you might be getting into. And this is from page 40, so this is relatively early in the book. And this is Robert Anton Wilson speaking about the 8-circuit model. So it says, following Dr. Timothy Leary, with a few modifications, we shall divide this brain hardware, referring to the nature of the brain as a sort of quasi-computer. Following Dr. Timothy Leary, with a few modifications, we shall divide this brain hardware into 8 circuits for convenience. And then it says, for convenience means that this is the best map I know at present. I assume it will be replaced by a better map within 10 to 15 years. And in any case, the map is not the territory. The map is not the terrain, folks. And this has relevance in aspects of Kabbalah as well. The tree is simply a map. It's a metaphor. It's not the actual shape of our consciousness or of the universe, as far as I know. It is simply a guideline. So this is one guideline for the map of our consciousness. First is the oral biosurvival circuit. And I might actually, one moment. Okay, we're back. I had to grab something off my wall. This is something that I keep right next to my chair there because of how often I find relevance in this. This is sort of a simplification of what I'm going to cover with the 8 circuits. So this is going to sound like a word salad. Okay, I was just waiting for the camera to focus there. This is going to sound like a bit of a word salad when I first talk about this, especially for those of you who don't have the book to follow along and can visualize the words as I'm saying them. But I'm going to read it as it is, and then I'm going to go over a sort of simplification. It's kind of hard to see because of the lighting. I apologize, but I'm going to go over a sort of simplification of it to make it a little bit more digestible. So first we have the oral biosurvival circuit. This is imprinted by the mother or the first mothering object and conditioned by the subsequent nourishment or threat. It is primarily concerned with sucking, feeding, cuddling, and body security. It retreats mechanically from the noxious or predatory, or from anything associated by imprinting or conditioning with the noxious or predatory. The way that I have this written is it's the oral viscerotonic sensational circuit. So it's the part of our brain that first begins to map our consciousness associated with things that come into contact with our mouth, our stomach, and our sensory awareness. Second is the anal emotional territorial circuit. This is imprinted in the toddling stage when the infant rises up, walks about, and begins to struggle for power within the family structure. This mostly mammalian circuit processes territorial rules, emotional games or cons, pecking order, and rituals of domination or submission. I have this down as the emotional, political, egotistic circuit. And what you'll notice is we're going from infancy to the toddler to adolescence to adulthood. This is the way that the brain develops in this model. And this can be extremely useful. For one reason, you can allow yourself to grow past some of these short circuitings within your consciousness once you realize, oh, you're worried about your ego. You're worried about the political aspects of your environment. You're worried about your emotions too much. That is the toddler aspect. So perhaps rise up or grow up in that moment, so to speak. Third, we have the time-binding semantic circuit. This is imprinted and conditioned by human artifacts and symbol systems. It handles and packages the environment, classifying everything according to the local reality tunnel. Invention, calculation, prediction, and transmitting signals across generations are its functions. And I have this listed as the anal extrapolary semantic circuit, and this deals with adolescence. Fourth is the moral sociosexual circuit. This is imprinted by the first orgasm mating experiences at puberty and is conditioned by tribal taboos. It processes sexual pleasure, local definitions of right and wrong, reproduction, adult parental personality, sexual, and nurture of the young. I have this listed as the moral sociosexual circuit. And this I have written adulthood-ish. So this is what is generally considered to be an adult. Once you have your boundaries around the moral taboos and the sociosexual norms and ideals of the society, that is when you are typically considered to be an adult in a lot of cultures. Then I will continue to read. There's 2 more paragraphs before the next and the 5th circuit. The development of these circuits as the brain evolved through evolution, and as each domesticated primate, human, brain recapitulates evolution and growing from infancy to adulthood, makes possible gene pool survival, mammalian sociobiology, which is pecking order or politics, and transmission of culture. Now, there's an asterisk at this one, so I must have enjoyed it very, very much. The second group of 4 brain circuits is much newer, and each circuit exists at present only in minorities. Now, this has nothing to do with race. It has more to do with percentages. The second group of 4 brain circuits is much newer, and each circuit exists at present only in minorities. Where the antique circuits recapitulate evolution to the present, these futuristic circuits precapitulate our future evolution. So these are, you might say, more advanced or a higher octave of consciousness. So coming into the fifth one, we have the holistic neurosomatic circuit. This is imprinted by ecstatic experience via biological or chemical yogas. It processes neurosomatic, mind-body, feedback loops, somatic sensory bliss, feeling high, faith healing, etc. Christian Science, NLP, and holistic medicine consist of tricks or gimmicks to get this circuit into action, at least temporarily. Tantric yoga is concerned with shifting consciousness entirely into this circuit, according to Robert Anton Wilson and perhaps Timothy Leary. I have this listed as the neurosomatic psychocordial circuit, also known as the witch field, is what I have it labeled here as. And in my experience, this circuit is what makes a lot of magic and sorcery perhaps not possible, but it's what gives it the ability to be, I guess I'd say, programmed and manipulated. Next is the collective neurogenetic circuit. This is imprinted by advanced yogas, biochemical and electrical stresses. It processes DNA, RNA, brain feedback systems, and is collective, in that it contains and has access to the whole evolutionary script, past and future. Experience of this circuit is numinous, mystical, mind-shattering. Here dwell the archetypes of Jung's collective unconscious, gods, goddesses, demons, hairy dwarves, and other personifications of the DNA program's instincts that govern us. That's very interesting to me. I have this as the collective neurogenetic circuit, or the looking glass. Next, the seventh, is the meta-programming circuit. This is imprinted by very advanced yogas. It consists, in modern terms, of cybernetic consciousness, reprogramming and re-imprinting all other circuits, even reprogramming itself, making possible conscious choice between alternative universes or reality tunnels. Something to consider. I have this listed as the meta-programming psychosurrealism circuit, or the Hall of Mirrors. The non-local quantum circuit is next. This is imprinted by shock, near-death or clinical death experience, by OOBEs, out-of-body experiences, often known as OBEs. So near-death, clinical death, out-of-body experiences, by trans-time perceptions, or precognition, by trans-space visions, ESP, etc. It tunes the brain into the non-local quantum communication system suggested by physicists such as Bohm, Walker, Sarfati, Bell, etc. So I have this listed as the metaphysiological rapture circuit, or it's also known as samadhi in some cases. And samadhi could occur at a level that is lower than this, but that idea of rapture and coming into association with things that exist outside of your life force, your life form, and your day-to-day experiences. So that is within the first 40 pages of this book. The next that I have a tab on, it is a section that covers what's known as the psychological humors, the alchemical humors, or the medieval modes of seeing aspects of our consciousness. So there is a book that is called I'm Okay, You're Okay. And this is a relatively older book. It was, let me see if I can quickly find the date of publication. This says copyright 1948, copyright 1955. So this book is 75 years old almost. Actually, for its first publication, it's about 75 years old. So this is somewhat going to reference that perspective of I'm okay, you're okay. And we'll get a little bit more into that. So first discussed is bilious humor, which relates to a constitution that has a very bile, acidic aspect. And the bilious humor is hostile strength. Then we have the sanguinary humor, which is friendly strength. Then we have phlegmatic or phlegmatic humor, which is friendly weakness. And then choleric humor, which is hostile weakness. So we have hostile strength and hostile weakness. And then we have friendly strength and friendly weakness. I'm sure we've all met people or know someone or are somewhat favoring of these constitutions to some degree some of the time. Now, the second aspect of that, I mentioned I'm okay, you're okay. So the sanguinary friendly strength humor says I'm okay, you're okay. The phlegmatic friendly weakness constitution or humor says I'm not okay, but you're okay. And part of what that means is it's the self-sacrifice to make sure that everyone around us is okay, sort of taking from ourselves. What else? How else would you say that? Cannibalizing ourselves to other people. So next is the choleric hostile weakness constitution or humor, which says, I'm not okay, you're not okay. And this tends to be the very neurotic constitution of everything is shit, nothing is right, everything is terrible, and it's just going to get even worse, which, as I mentioned, is typically a very neurotic circuit or constitution. Then last is the bilious hostile strength constitution or humor, which says, I'm okay, you're not okay. And this is sort of the other way that the neurotic mind can go, where I'm doing everything right, so you must be doing everything wrong. This can be applied in so many ways. It can be applied within ourself. It can be applied within a community. It can be applied to your magical craft. It is there's a wealth of information in there, and some people might call this outdated information. I believe that we can use this information to update our current understanding of things because we've tossed so much out. We've, as the proverb of tossing the baby out with the bathwater, or the proverbial saying, I suppose. So that can be applied in so many ways. The next bookmark that I have is relating to the nature of monopolies. I found this extremely interesting. I have mentioned this to several people, and more than one person has said, be careful who you let hear you say this. I keep a piece of paper, or I used to keep a piece of paper in my wallet. Now I find more relevance keeping it here underneath my chair so I can reference it every now and then. And one of my friends who's a little bit more radical said, don't let a policeman find that in your wallet. So this covers the nature of monopolies. And this is from page 109. The previous one was from pages 73 and 74. So we're not even halfway through this book yet. So this is the first aspect of how monopolies form according to Robert Anton Wilson and according to history. The first is, and there are four here. That's it. The first is the monopolization of knowledge by priests or the priest class, e.g., or I believe that means ergo, the Egyptian priests kept written language a secret among themselves, as did the Mayan priests. So the information, the knowledge, the teachings, the wisdom begins to be monopolized first. The second is the monopolization of military power by conquerors who made themselves states or governments, e.g., a French bastard, Tom Paine's description of William the Conqueror, lands on the shore of England with a superior technology, warriors on horse versus native warriors on foot, and he becomes king. His relatives and sycophants become lords of the land. Third is the monopolization of the land by these landlords. The extraction of tribute, rent, from those who live on the land. It's a very, very brief one, but it's very important. Fourth is the monopolization of the issue of currency by national banks. The extraction of tribute, interest, for each piece of currency put into circulation. Then it says most civilizations seem to have gone through at least 3 of these stages, not always consecutively. Some have passed through all 4. So there's a sort of, it's not really an acronym. It's sort of it's a mnemonic, you might say. This is how I remember this. I say that the priests control the information, the warriors control the armies, the kings control the territory, and then the thieves control the currency. And that acronym makes PWKT, which to me sounds like pocket. And this is the system they use to keep us in their pockets, so to speak. So, and then I wrote new ideas are revolutionary, which then take us back to number 1, new ideas. That's more information to be controlled. And this is one reason why censorship is such a vital component to monopolies and to dictatorships, because that new information can be revolutionary to the control. Anyway, moving on. Next is the discussion of the tarot. I loved this. This is the discussion of the tarot in relation to the circuits of consciousness. So here we have, it says, these 4 circuits are coded with 4 permutations of each into the court cards of the tarot deck. Thus, the Knight of Discs, representing Earth of Earth, according to the occultists, is the pure first circuit type. So there will be a little bit of variation here. It looks like we're using, okay, so the knights in this instance are the kings in other instances. And I do understand that some of these will be different. For instance, the kings or the knights often relate to fire in some tarot traditions. Sometimes they relate to air. So if you really care, you might have to do some, if you really care about how to translate this, you might have to do some translation. You might have to do some recapitulation of these ideas. But take the elements, as in Earth of Earth, etc., into consideration when you're doing so. Moving on. Thus, the Knight of Discs, representing Earth of Earth, according to the occultists, is pure first circuit type. All sensation, all oral demand, all viscerotonic. Behind their alchemical, Kabbalistic, theosophical jargon, most books on tarot are describing this type when they discuss the card, the pure, undiluted mama's boy. Next, the Queen of Discs, or Earth of Water, is a mixture of first and second circuit traits. There's a mixture of first and second circuit traits. Sensational, viscerotonic, oral, and emotional, egotistical, political. You better be damned careful to call her Ms. The Prince of Discs, or Earth of Air, is a blend of first and third circuits, oral demand and rational calculation, probably a very sharp and sharkish lawyer. Finally, the Princess of Discs, or Earth of Fire, is first circuit orality mixed with the fourth circuit sexuality. The fusion of exhibitionism with inflamed eros means that she's probably starring in porn movies, and in all discards, the first circuit predominates over the others. This was revolutionary for my readings and for my meditations. I had never thought of it that way. And I think there's a lot of utility in it. So moving on to the next bookmark that I have here is in relationship to well, this is going to take a little bit more to get into. This relates to cults and the way that they utilize circuits. And it's going to be hard for me to get into this without just reading pages. So I'll make a note that that is a part of this book. And if you're interested in that, you might find utility there. Let's see, what else do we have here? Here we have a section about the nature of UFOs and various cryptids, I think some people would call them. This here says, in fact, even the UFOs seen on radar become UFOs, unidentified rather than identified flying objects, through processes of evaluation in the nervous system of the radar operator. It is therefore the Einsteinian and operational approach to accept the seamless unity of UFO observer and cease to separate them into UFO and observer. And then it says the types of critters who appear in human UFO experiences include the following: black men, blue men, green men, black-faced men with green bodies, fish-scaled men, hairy dwarves, huge-headed bald dwarves, armless humanoids, dwarves with 3 fingers, dwarves with 8 fingers, claw-handed men, one-eyed men, elephant-eared men, long-haired sexless women, man-apes, man-birds, robots, beer can-shaped entities walking on fins, headless things, dwarves in Nazi uniforms, sinister greys who engage in sexual and or genetic tamperings with humans. This is only a partial zoology of the UFO experience. The craft flavored by this odd crew includes big blobs of light, little blobs of light, clusters of lights, hard metallic ships, flat-bottomed discs, and on and on and on and on. We are being invaded by beings from dozens of galaxies, it said Otto Binder, a believer in the extraterrestrial theory of UFOs. So, if memory serves me correctly, this is in relation to, I guess I'll just go ahead and read here. As the semanticist Alfred Korzybski, Alfred Korzybski often warned, when we split verbally that which is never split existentially, we introduce fallacies into our thinking. Korzybski's favorite example was the matter of space and time. For an experience, we never encounter space without time, or time without space. So, to me, this is calling toward the nature of our experience and the way that our consciousness filters things into a way that we can understand via symbolism. And this is, in my mind, often why in older traditions and even some newer traditions, why we would have men with an ibis head or a woman with a cow's head, etc., etc. It's very highly symbolic and shouldn't be taken so literally. Let's see. This opened up on its own. I don't think I'll get into that right now. Okay, so I suppose I'll pick up here, which is chapter 18, page 265, that says the non-local quantum circuit. And then there's a quote from James Joyce in Ulysses. The ways of the Creator are not our ways, Mr. Deasy said. All history moves toward one great goal, the manifestation of God. Then chapter 19 is called Prometheus Rising. And it gets into Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, some Zen koans, and not necessarily the koans themselves, but some elucidations of what they are. This is a very, very eclectic and eccentric book that I highly recommend for those of you who are more intellectual, more of a hunter, you might say, as we talked about in another interview, more of a hunter as opposed to a dreamer. This is a great benefit and boon to those who don't understand why people do what they do when it comes to magic and ceremony, or why they believe what they believe when it comes to the occult. How could you worship a being that's half man and half bird? Well, there might be something you're missing, and books like this, Prometheus Rising, might do very well to help elucidate some understanding and some ideas and some explanation onto why that might be. Anyway, that's all for this one. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good rest of the day.